Um, I should have started before I hit record, but if you don't want to be on video, please turn off your video. All right, welcome to another weekly dev meeting for Helm. All right, it is Thursday, September 28th. And of course, as usual, we follow the CNCF Code of Conduct, be nice, play nice, and we all get along. We have a couple of announcements, and the notes doc isn't in chat. Drop it really fast. There you go. Please add any announcements, notes, discussion points, shout outs, social media amplifications to the doc, please. And we'll go ahead and kick off with announcements. Joe or Farina, would you like to talk about Helm 3.13?
Sure. It's out. It's released. It's out the door. And so now it's working on the patch release, which we already have several things to go in for 3.13.1. So I'm expecting to cut that in 2-3 weeks. It'll be a quick turnaround, but we already have stuff for it.
Oh, wow. That's what. Shut up. Seems like it was a big one. I saw a lot of
it was a big one, even in terms of content. Two things about it. I did not include, I guess I didn't fully understand the index JSON one. I'm running a few tests and right now. I also, for 3.13, I'd like to get a blog post out in the next day or so. So I'll probably write something up and then ping a few people to review so we can get that merged. But this one has enough changes in it. It's worth a blog. And we haven't written one in a while. So I'm going to try and carve out some time. Joe, you raised a hand.
Just to be clear, it's not an index JSON. It's a I'm supposed to be noting this stuff. It's not an index JSON. It's still index YAML.
It's index YAML with JSON on it.
JSON content.
Yes. Yeah. So it's backwards compatible. Actually, testing it with Helm 3.0.0 works. So everything's backwards compatible all the way. Now I just got other questions before I write something up.
So what were the top things that you feel everybody should know about in 3.13?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of rework to the value stuff that put them into proper priorities, because there are always these bugs in values handling. Like, we have this ability to import values, but it was totally inconsistent. In fact, it had to do with when you did the importing values, the order at which you did things in your chart YAML file in the dependency section, the order in which you imported things changed the behavior by which things were imported. So that's all consistent, and the order of things doesn't impact it anymore, because there were just all these weird bugs along the way. And so now it all has a consistent priority with the intended priority. The bugs that people had written all kinds of issues about should be fixed now. Null now consistently removes things. That was another problem. It was that same exact section of code that was causing it, basically. And so I fixed it all at once. But null, there were times where it would remove values, like you'd expect, and other times where it didn't remove values. It set them to null. Now it consistently does things across the board. It was inconsistent. So that was one of them. There's the Helm get metadata command now. That's one. Index files with JSON in them, which should be more performant, especially for the large repos. That's another. Forgetting some things in here. OCI, plain HTTP, there's a flag for it now. So if you're like testing, say Docker or distribution on localhost and it's over HTTP, there's a flag for it now. You can play with some of those things. It'd be nice for CI and some of that stuff. You probably shouldn't use it in production though, especially not with credentials.
I think one of the big features from a developer standpoint is that you can now set dry run equals server and actually run the server.
Yes. And so if you're looking for that server configuration in dry run to, do things like lookups, stuff like that, there is now a command, server for dry run. It's backwards compatible, but you can set, dry run equals server, and it will connect to the server and get real live information. Yep. So yes, there's a lot in this release.
It's exciting. Yeah, I'd love to review if you want to ping me too on that.
Sure.
If you want eyes on it. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, then let's move on to the discussion topics. Joe, I think this is Joe Julian. Is yours the first one?
It's the other Joe's. It's the other Joe actually.
Yeah.
Hey Joe. There's a PR that's been open for a long time to get to add a reset and reuse values flag. This is valuable for when the values YAML in the chart changes or has new, maybe the chart JSON, the schema changes and has new required fields. If you just use reuse values, the new fields won't be picked up and the JSON schema will fail. If you reset, you lose your values. So this is a flag that allows you to reset it to pick up the new values and then apply your stored values, which will satisfy the needs of our customers and it allows us to test things the way we actually tell our customers to do it. Right now chart testing always sets reuse values, which means they can't use it because we do make values changes and schema changes.
Okay, I popped this open on my to review list this afternoon. I'll go take a look at it.
Thank you.
All right, our next discussion topic is Ian, storing config data for the CLI.
Yes. So I was digging in a little bit to this bug where if you run Helm plugin update, it doesn't find new versions. And I kind of quickly came to see that there's kind of a bigger problem in that we don't have any place to put the version constraint. At least it wasn't evident to me that we have any place to put the version constraint to save it. Other than like I could make my own version constraint file, but then I was like, that seems a little heavy-handed to have my own version constraint file. It seems like maybe there needs to be like a more general place. And I would assume maybe this has come up in the past where it's like we'd like to save something and don't have a spot. Is this yeah, so I just thought I'd kind of open that up to discussion. What like I was like, oh, I could put it in the repositories.yaml, but I'm like, that doesn't really seem to be the right spot because it's called repositories.yaml, but maybe it should really be named just Helm YAML or something. But yeah, thoughts.
So, well, there's a couple of things. First, being backwards compatible, I think is an important thing here. So if we didn't capture it and somebody wants to upgrade it, do we need to pass in at the command line upgrade and here's the version you want to upgrade to? And if not, just upgrade to the latest. This may be one of those cases where we don't store it because if somebody didn't fill it in versus somebody who did, your upgrade's going to be different, right? So if I did Helm plugin, upgrade, and I tell what to upgrade, and how should that work? If it doesn't know the version constraint you originally did because you upgraded to a Helm version with it, then does it upgrade to just the latest one? Do you have to pass in a flag to now tell it the version? What do you do versus somebody who installs it and then we are able to record the constraint and then upgrade from it? And then what if somebody passed in just a very specific version and they want to upgrade to the latest there?
Well, right now we don't give anyone the capability to upgrade to a specific version. You can only run upgrade and it will upgrade to it. All it'll do is update to your latest, at least in the VCS. I'll be specific to this is just the VCS installer.
The VCS.
Yeah.
So what if we do this, following Helm install? Right now I'm just thinking aloud, folks. Tell me what you think. What if Helm upgrade, whatever, grabs the current VCS reference? If it is a semantic version, then it tries to find the latest semantic version for the repository and just upgrade to the latest. So if you've got version 1.2.3 that's installed, then it will, and the latest one is 4.5.6, tries to upgrade to 4.5.6, right? Goes all the way to the tip of the latest semantic version. If the reference is not a semantic version, it treats it like a branch and tries to do an upgrade on the branch. Okay. Because, it may just be somebody installed, main, and we say, oh, it's main, we're going to upgrade it. Now you have no idea what people's branch names are going to be. So the easiest way is to look at semantic versioning it, because this is what install does, right? And if it is if the reference is not an exact semantic version, but it is if it is, yeah. And then we can also have and that's what it would do by default, right? Then we could add a version flag on it where somebody can again pass in the version they want to use, and we could do the same thing as install if they pass in the version flag. Is that too complicated?
It's not really that complicated, honestly, to put that logic in, but I do wonder if someone would be surprised if they put a version constraint in install, then they ran update and ignored their version constraint.
Yeah.
That would be the
Yeah,
only thing I think with that strategy that I would wonder.
Yeah, and what I wonder is with backwards compatibility, because we haven't captured that information before. So if somebody already has it installed and they say upgrade and they put the version constraint in when they installed, and now we don't know it, how do we handle that situation?
Yes, we wouldn't
That's
know.
the
We
we
wouldn't.
wouldn't know what. Yeah,
Yeah, we wouldn't know under that circumstance.
and that's all I was trying to solve for. Now, the right place to store information like this is we have a Helm config home directory. And it's different on every system because it sticks it in the right place for, Mac, and the right place for Linux. So like in Linux, it's like tilde.config/Helm. On Mac, it's, users, your username, library, preferences, Helm. It finds the right places, but there is a Helm path package with a function you can call to just get that directory. And so if we were going to store things someplace, we can just store it in a file, like a JSON file in that directory, and we're good. You're going to see that's where the repositories config is already at. We already stick things in there, but there is a function internally just to get the right name dependent on your system in the Helm path package. And so we do have a place to store configuration information. I just don't know how to handle that backwards compatibility
Yeah.
without specifying it again.
You would have to, you'd have to have some sort of fallback behavior that's like, oh yeah, if we didn't capture your version constraint, then we're just going to assume you referenced it by, directly. I think that would be what I think that's what your fallback behavior would have to be, is you just keep it on the current reference, which is actually also the current behavior, is you just stay on the current reference forever.
Yeah. Should we add a version flag where you can then specify what to upgrade to, though? So that way, if they want to upgrade, they can pass that version in.
That would be probably the most trivial thing to implement as well, to just say, like, you basically, if you run update, the most trivial thing to implement would be if you run update, then all of a sudden it's just going to switch you to whatever the main branch is, unless you did -- version, in which case it's going to use the version constraint you passed in, which would be the same behavior as install.
On this, to me, wouldn't we want to make it work like other package managers? Like, I know, so brew on my laptop, if I run brew upgrade, it goes through and it just updates with the packages, unless I've pinned particular plugins in this case for us.
It just goes to the bare latest one is what it always does. And that's kind of what, I'm suggesting, right? Is if it is on a VCS reference that is a version, then we go look for the VCS reference that's the latest version from that version control system and upgrade. That's what brew, that's what other package managers are going to do.
Yeah.
Unless they're not on a reference that's an actual version. And if they're not on a reference that's an actual version, we treat it like a branch, like main, master, whatever. And in that case, we just pull the branch for the latest bits.
I think that
Right.
makes sense. The
Eh,
only thing
yeah.
I think that maybe is another thing I think that might be a little bit surprising is that I think most folks would expect when they run an install command that they're going to follow the versions, like, or they're going to follow semver and not probably the main branch, because most people are probably installing main branch right now would be my bet, because I don't know if I've seen any example commands that tell you to use dash dash version, right? When they say install this plugin, they just install it straight from main.
You are absolutely right. The way I look at this is it's not pretty, and in a Helm version 4, this would be a great place to radically upgrade and clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why I also thought of the version flag, so you can actually specify a specific version or range if you want to go to it. So that way, if you don't want to just upgrade to the latest, maybe the latest has got a bug in it, you want to go one back, you've got a flag to update to that one that's one back in your choice, right?
Yeah.
That's but I think you're absolutely right. Being able to capture this, configure it, control it, like maybe even have that config file under version control and shared or all that stuff. I think there's some opportunity there. And if you can think of a good way to do it and solve for the backwards compatibility problem, that would be awesome. It's the backwards compatibility.
Well, I don't think see that as I think you can always just say, like, if I didn't know, then I'll just revert to whatever the current behavior is, which is do nothing. Or it's not really do nothing. If someone updated their tag for a version, right? I guess that was the other, I did have a thought at one point that somebody, like, we could say, hey, plugin developers, when you should have a tag called like v3, and that always tracks whatever the latest v3 is. So you should set up your CI/CD to like track a particular version, and then whenever anyone runs update on v3, they'll get that upgrade. Although I feel like this is a lot of things that would be very rarely used. So, and I think if you told them they needed these things, they probably wouldn't do it, and everyone would just follow main anyway. So then I kind of went down the path of, no, it's probably more on us to follow the semantic tags versus trying to put it on the plugin developer repositories, which probably would not actually do such a thing. Because that actually would work today, right? If you did Helm install v3, plugin name in v3, and then you ran update, everything would work exactly as you'd expect. It's only when you install with a constraint, and then that reference is never updated, that you get the behavior you don't expect, where you never actually get upgraded. So, okay, that was it on that.
Okay.
So I also had the next one, which is, it doesn't look like the latest version got written to that bucket. And I was looking, was there a bug in the workflow? Did it get reverted? Because I was just looking at, I went into the GitHub UI and looked at it. It looked like maybe it was missing a run : tilde to actually in the workflow YAML.
Where was it we do this?
This
Where
was
we generate it.
This was in release YAML. Oh, no, it's there. So, but it's not, it is missing a run. It's actually broken, which I can put a PR in to actually fix that. But I wonder why the release ran at all if if this wasn't correct.
Let me see real quick here.
So I can put a link in the chat. This is the place.
Is it valid YAML? It might be valid YAML. And that's all that it would take.
But if
I didn't even catch the missing run before.
It looks like, if you look at the action though, it didn't. Oh, maybe that's what it does. If it doesn't have a run, it just skips it. Although, so if you look at the workflow file for this run, it's not in there. It's missing So it didn't choose that the main branch's workflow, which I don't know where it got the workflow from then.
It gets it from the release branch. Did this not get merged into the release branch? When did we do that after the? Yeah, so do the pull request and ping me when you've got that. What day was it on? I know, 2 weeks ago. What date was 2 weeks ago?
So with 5 minutes left, I'm wondering if you two could work on that async.
Yep.
We'll work on it async and get it worked
Yep.
out. Yeah, I'm not sure why it. Yeah, so when it runs, it's going to run it from the release branch. And so it's not in that release branch is what's going on.
Okay.
Why?
But yeah, must have just missed. Well, in this case, it probably was good because there was an error there. Although,
Yeah,
I mean, I
it
guess we just
didn't
gotta
get
fix it.
that it got merged after the release candidate was cut. And that's what happened. Somehow it got merged after the release candidate was cut. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but or exactly, I don't remember the details on it, but that's the underlying issue.
Got it.
It was not, didn't make it in the release candidate. It's one of those things we can pick though over to 3.13.1, which is just a couple of weeks away.
Okay, cool.
All right, we have two more discussion points in the last 4 minutes. Ralph brought up the chunk secrets from July 27 that you talked about, Matt. Did I grab the right ones, Ralph? Do you want to talk about those?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, hi. First time joining this call. So, yeah, my question was on July 27. I was notified by some developer saying, hey, if you still want to continue your PR for chunked secret drivers, where Kubernetes secrets become too big to store a Helm release, there was some talk about in this meeting on July 27. So it might be a good time to reactivate it. In the meantime, we've completed our PR. We think it's ready, at least to be reviewed. There's a second PR. The links are in the chat, right? The top one, 12277 is the one that our team built, and then there's another one built by another developer. So my question was, we as our company has a vested interest in being able to have big Helm release secrets, because we basically deploy enterprise level software products through Helm charts, and that results in big charts. So the question is there an agreement that this is a good idea between Helm maintainers? Is there any timeline that exists? These were sort of the basic questions. Do we have a shot at getting such support in Helm or not?
You're muted, Matt.
I would say you have a shot at getting it in. I'll go ahead and review the work that's up there. The soonest it could get in would be for 3.14, which is slated for, I think, January 17th. So it would need to probably be done before the end of the year with the holidays and the slow start to the year. I'll put it on my list of things to review, and I'll probably get to it in the next few days, maybe into early next week. But you'll at least get initial feedback in that time period.
Oh, great. Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay, and then George, you have a 3.13 bug.
I just saw this quickly. I just looked at the issues reported, and I saw this one. I know people reported that it's not. Helm 3.1.3 isn't working with a ECR across the board. So, and Hidko, I think we know who he is. He identified the PR, which he thinks caused it. So, yeah, in the interest of time, I just thought I'd bring it up, but I guess we can look at those scores.
Yeah, Hitty,
Okay, is there anybody who wants to dig into the code on this?
Hitty already got a PR up to fix it, from the Flux project. I'll review it.
Perfect. Yeah, review it, and if it passes with you, shoot it my way too, and we'll
Okay.
see about getting this one out pretty quick.
It's small, so it should be pretty easy.
I'll throw it in the milestone. Okay. All right.
And we are at time, so can anybody, or are there any volunteers for next week? Moderator?
I won't be here next week.
Anybody else?
Triage.
Triage? Okay. Thank you. I could do notes. I think I'm here next week still. Anybody for moderator? Joe, do you want to take a break from notes?
Sure.
What about PR review? Is that Ian or Joe or? I know Ben, do you want to volunteer?
I can take us some PRs as well. I've been a little strict for time recently, but hopefully I'll bring up.
Yeah, things are starting to slow down a little bit for me, so I'll start digging in more.
All right. Do you want to do notes next week, or how would you like to jump in?
I'm not sure if I can do notes next week, but I'll start adding more comments to some of the reviews. I think there's a couple that we mentioned today, so I'll go through them also as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks, Ben. Cool. Okay. See you all next week. Thank you. Cheers.